Hey guys, Sam here at NA Studios. Today I'm looking at something that we as audio engineers are always after. We're looking for those magic free plugins. They don't cost us anything, but they have a great effect on our audio. Now I'm going to show you 5 completely free plugins today, and these are ones that I rely on to get the most punch out of drums. As always, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit like in this video, and check out what we've got coming up next. Let's take a look. Right, so I've got a rock session here. This is from Tommy Loose. This one is called Change You. First off, I'm going to look at some stuff that we can use on a drum bus, which will get us some punch, some parallel stuff, and then I'm going to look at kind of some overall bus stuff and then some individual bits. So first off, I'm going to use this Transient Designer, Couture, I'm not entirely sure what it's called. It's from Auburn Sounds, completely free. I've done a video on this before, and it's just fantastic. The way I use it is on in kind of a parallel scenario, similar to the one I did when I used Slate Digital's Bomber. You can check that out. I'll put a link up above. But this is just adding so much punch to the sound. So what I've done is I've just taken the snare bus and the kick bus and sent it to this drum punch bus, and just have a listen. I'm going to mute the vocals. We've just got the instruments. Just have a listen as I bring up this fader, just how much extra punch it adds to the kick and snare. So here we go. This is before first, and then I'll bring it up. It's crazy. So without and then with. So I think I'm kind of overdoing it a little bit there. What I tend to do on parallel buses is you'll always bring up some bottom end because you're kind of doubling the signal. So I'll take out a bit of the bottom end so that kick doesn't get overwhelming. So without, then with. Transient Designers are no secret. We all know they're fantastic on drums, but using them in a parallel scenario means that we can really overdo it. We can click this transient multiply by 3 control, and that's just going to give us so much of the transient. If we listen to it on its own, crazy, just that initial punch. We bring it in underneath and we get an instant punchy drum sound. All right, number 2. This is from Slate Digital. This is Revival. I love this on kick and snare. It adds so much snap to the top end, and it adds so much girth to the bottom end. Let's have a listen to it just soloed, and then we'll take it out of the mix and then put it back in. So this is the snare bus on its own without Revival. I'm just going to bring in some bottom. Nice. And then some top. So much snap. I'm going to take it off and then put it on, and then we'll hear it in the track. Without. That's with. Let's hear it in the mix then. I'm going to take off the initial Transient Designer bus thing we did, just so we can hear a kind of a fair idea of it. So here it is without first. And now. Without. With. I find with this plugin you can't do too much. Go all the way with both of them. Without. It sounds crazy out of the mix, then you put it in. So like I say, it's just one of those things that if you take it out of the mix, it doesn't fit, it doesn't sound right. But who cares what it sounds like out of the mix? We're not listening to the snare soloed, we're listening to it in the mix. When you put it in the mix, crank these 2 controls here, you're going to get that fat and top-endy snare that we're all searching for. Number 3 then, this is Monster, again from Slate Digital. This company does some fantastic plugins, and these 2 are the free ones. Now, the Monster, you've got to kind of be sensible with it, because if you use it just on its own in full whack, then it's just going to annihilate everything. Have a listen to it, how it is. It's just smashes everything. It's that 1176 all buttons in thing. But what we can do is if we take the mix all the way down, bring punch in and just try it on the settings that you get by default and bring that mix up. This without it, and I'm just going to bring that mix up. Just there. Without it, kind of a bit lifeless. With it, it's parallel compressing it. It's bringing up all that the kind of snare ring and the bottom snare-ness to it. So what you can then do is you can bring up the overall level. I tend to do this using trimmer. So let's listen to it in the mix. Without, then with. So because you're chopping off that initial transient, you can then bring up the level a little bit. It's going to squash it. It's going to make it really fat. It's going to accentuate that initial attack and then bring up all the stuff that comes after it. Fantastic plugin. That's number 3. That is the Monster. All right, number 4 is something that we're not necessarily doing to the drums, but we're doing to something to let the drums punch through. This is TDR Nova. So this is Tokyo Dawn's Labs. I love this plugin. It's like a dynamic EQ. You can kind of make stuff get out the way by a sidechain. So what I'm doing is I've set the sidechain to the snare bus. I've got both the snare mic and the trigger going to it. And then I've set it so that the kind of high mids, or I guess the mids like around 2 or 3K, and the sort of grunt of the snare around 200 Hertz is going to get ducked out the way as soon as the snare hits. So we're not doing it to the snare, we're doing it to the guitar bus so that the snare can punch through. Because what you'll find is that the snare and the guitars kind of occupy that similar kind of area. The chunk is all in that sort of 200, a little bit below frequency range, and the kind of snap is all in that kind of 2 to 5K region. So we're just going to make the guitars duck out the way ever so slightly just when the snares hit. I'll play it without first and then we'll hear it with. It's a subtle one, but it just, every little helps with it, I think. So before, this is without it first. And then without. So let me just accentuate that wildly for a moment, just so we can hear exactly what's going on. It kind of makes the snare pump a little bit. The guitars, sorry. There we go. So it just compresses a certain frequency range, which means that the guitars get out the way of that snare so it can punch through and just make the most impact possible. So I'm not doing that to the drums on their own. We're doing that to something else so the drums can have that natural punch to come through. All right, then finally, number 5. This is one that is kind of a sleeper. Not a lot of people really use it as a main limiter, a peak limiter. It's limiter number 6. Now, this is a great limiter because it has so many features to it. This is by... Who does this one? I can't even remember. Let's have a look. This is by... I've got no idea who that is. Vladislav something. Sorry for pronouncing your name wrong. But you can just Google it, a limiter number 6. I'll put a link below. This has got so many features to it. In this instance, we're only going to kind of use one of them, but you can see it's got a mastering limiter, it's got a peak limiter, a high frequency limiter, which is handy. A soft clipper, which is what we're going to use, and then kind of a protection circuit, just like a real limiter. Here we're going to use the soft clipper. So we're going to push the signal into it and then bring it down afterwards. And what's going to happen is 2 things. It's going to chop off the initial transient just slightly, just so that it doesn't pop up too much, and then it's going to bring up that tail a little bit. So although we want punchy snares, punchy kicks, we don't want them to pop out the mix so much that it gets in the way of the vocal or gets in the way of the guitar solo. We want them to be punchy, but we don't want them to be the only transient that we can hear. So on its own then, let's have a listen to the drums without this, and then let's pop on the limiter number 6 on the soft clipper mode and just see what it's doing. So without first, just solo, just drums. Then let's bring it in. Really bringing up that tail. So without it. Now with it, without it, with it. You're kind of bringing up some of the roominess of the drums. It's something that you could potentially automate. You could bring it up so that it's just coming in on the choruses, so you get kind of the wash of the cymbals a little bit more. That's a trick that I've been doing for years, bringing up the room mics just in the choruses, bringing up the overheads just in the choruses. It all creates just that little bit of movement. I think this is a fantastic plugin, particularly seeing as you can get it for free, but you can do mid-side stuff like lateral vertical stuff. You can do compression on it. You can do multi-band compression, multi-band soft clipping. The possibilities are endless with this plugin. It's absolutely fantastic. So there we go then. So 5 tips for you, 5 plugins that are completely 100% free you can use to make punchier drums. These won't just work in rock, these will work in hip hop, these will work in rock, in metal, in any kind of genre where you need that extra kind of attack on the drums. All right, thanks a lot. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit like. Thanks a lot for checking this video out. Make sure you check out what else we got on the channel. All right, take care.